on Power Talk AM 1460 and FM 101.1. Streaming worldwide on iHeartRadio. Jan Price talks to the movers and shakers in the film business. The Jan Price Show.
You're listening to The Jan Price Show, and today my guest is Ultimate Fighter winner James Wilks, and we're talking about a brand new documentary, which I think is a must-see documentary called The Game Changers. Welcome to the show, James.
Jan, thanks so much for having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure. As soon as your publicist sent me the trailer to this movie, I knew immediately this was something I wanted to talk about. Having been a vegetarian most of my life, and making that choice at a young age, because I never really liked meat. But let's tell the listeners what this movie's about, and then we can get into further about many other things. I have many questions for you.
Absolutely. I mean, it primarily documents the dramatic rise of plant-based eating in professional sports. So it focuses on performance and also health and dispels a lot of myths that people believe regarding meat and protein.
Okay. And so the movie, how did you get involved with having a plant-based diet?
So, I was training for a fight for the UFC and tore ligaments in both my knees when sparring with a future heavyweight champion. And I had about 6 months where I thought, well, what can I do with my time? So I thought, well, I can start looking into the research for diet for optimal recovery and athletic performance. And that's when I came across a study about the Roman gladiators. So scientists analyzed the bone of the only known burial gladiator site in the world, Ephesus, Turkey, and analyzed the 68 full gladiator skeletons and could tell that they were eating almost exclusively, if not completely, plants. And I thought that really can't be true, because we have to have meat and animal protein to be strong and athletic and healthy. So that's when I really started digging into the research. And as I started digging into it, I felt like I'd been lied to my whole life about, needing this meat to be strong and healthy. So I felt like I had to make a documentary about it.
And so the whole idea for the documentary came from you.
Yeah, it essentially follows my journey into looking into this, the research into nutrition for optimal health and optimal recovery and performance. But it certainly took a very large team, including the other producer, Joseph Pace, who had some screenwriting experience and had also been plant-based for many years. He's also been key in getting this documentary made.
Well, you've attracted you have some amazing people who are producers for this, such as James Cameron and Arnold Schwarzenegger and Jackie Chan and Lewis Hamilton, just to name a few. How did you get them all involved, and have all of them been on a plant-based diet?
So, yeah, I met James Cameron in 2014. We were put in touch by one of our other executive producers, Rip Esselstyn, who he actually was a firefighter, and some of the firefighters in his firehouse were getting a bit high cholesterol, so they had a competition. Rip was on a plant-based diet, and he got his cholesterol and his LDL much lower than everybody else. So he started getting all the firefighters in Austin, Texas, shifting towards more plant-based eating, especially in his firehouse. So he introduced us to James Cameron, and it sort of went from there. Jim had watched a documentary early on called Forks Over Knives. When I say Jim, I mean what we call James Cameron. And so Jim had watched a documentary early on and had literally gone home and thrown all the animal products out of his cupboards in the kitchen, and really stuck with plant-based eating. And he's motivated by health and also the benefits towards environment. And from there, we got on board Luis Cejoyos as well, who's has the most award-winning documentary of all time. It won the Oscars, it won the Sundance Awards, and about 70 other film festival awards.
And what movie was that? What?
That was The Cove.
The Cove. Oh, yes.
And so from there, the team just started to grow. Jim Cameron, talked to Arnold about this, who's a good buddy of his. And Arnold wanted to do an interview and came on board as an executive producer. And Jackie Chan really cares about the environment, especially, and encourages people shifting towards more plant-based diets for that reason. And then we got some great athletes involved as well. Chris Paul, who's a 9-time NBA All-Star, who's on a plant-based diet. Novak Djokovic, who just recently won Wimbledon, ranked as the #1 male tennis player in the world, on a plant-based diet. And then Lewis Hamilton, the 5-time Formula One champion, also on a plant-based diet and is featured in the film as well. So just very fortunate to have a great team, both in the production side, but also with the executive producers helping this film get made and out to the world as well.
Well, that was what was also interesting because, as I said earlier in the show, as a child, I didn't like meat. So and my mother said, "Oh, you'll be a vegetarian when you grow up." Then she swore later she never said that. But anyhow, and I've always been more, and then I became more of a pescatarian, and then I added, chicken and turkey into it. But after, and I had tried to be a vegan, back, forever ago, before we had all these wonderful products that are out there that taste so good. My home is vegan, but when I go out, it's another story. I will eat fish or something like that. And after watching this movie, I have now declared no dairy products, no eggs, no fish, no turkey, no chicken. I'm going to go back to a complete vegan lifestyle, and it might be difficult because I still like my pizza and things like that. But as I said, at home, I'm completely vegan. Occasionally, I'll have some Greek yogurt, but now that will be out of the mix too. But it is something that I have found. I think vegetarians tend to obviously have a lot of energy, or vegans, and also look younger. Have you found that to be true?
I haven't looked at the research on. I do hear it anecdotally, but I don't know. I haven't seen the research on people looking younger. But certainly, there's certain health benefits and certainly athletic performance benefits. And you're talking about, going completely vegan. I think you've got to meet people where they're at. We're not saying go vegetarian or going vegan.
No.
We're saying is, we wanted to show some facts, dispel some myths, and let people make their own decision. And hopefully that leads to, a shift towards more plant-based eating. And, if they want to go all the way, that's great. And we're going to give them, when the film comes out to the public, we're actually putting, lots of resources on the website so that people can make that shift, recipes, shopping tips, and all the FAQs and that sort of thing.
You're exactly right. You have to meet people where they're at and, what feels comfortable for them. And, but, the other aspect of really helping the planet by going with a more plant-based diet was also, we don't think about it, but statistically in this movie, you show that. That's a lot of research that went into this film. So do you want to talk a little bit about that for our listeners?
Yeah, although the film sort of starts following my journey and in recovery and athletic performance, and then as you know, you've seen the film, my father has a heart attack, unfortunately, and I'm sort of making the connection there between, in the short term, the things that affect athletic performance and health, like inflammation and blood flow. In the long term, those things affect our health, with cancer and heart disease, diabetes, the leading causes of disease. But as I look deeper into the sort of plant-based eating, I realized that there were other benefits as well. And the environment certainly stands out as one of them. It's the biggest single thing that any person can do to help the environment and the climate is to make a change in their diet towards more plant-based eating. So, in fact, livestock are responsible for about the same amount of greenhouse gas emissions as the entire transportation industry, cars, planes, trains, automobiles, that sort of thing. So it really is if someone, rather than just driving an electric car or changing your light bulbs, those things are all great. But making a shift towards more plant-based eating is really the biggest thing that you can do to help the environment and the planet.
And it's just astounding. When it's just truly astounding when you say that. It just blows you away.
Yeah, it's certainly unbelievable.
It truly is. How hard was it? Because your father had the heart attack. How hard was it for you to convince him? Because where he's from in England, was very big on meat eating. Tell us a little bit about the town you came from and what they're famous for.
Yeah, I'm from Melton Mowbray, which is known in England as the rural capital of food. And, there's a lot of animal food marketing around there and production. And it's actually known for the Melton Mowbray pork pie. And it's also the home of Stilton cheese. And so it's a very heavy, the Western diet tends to be heavy in animal products anyway, but it's particularly heavy there. And certainly my father was no exception. And I had been talking to him about this plant-based eating, as I was uncovering some of the research. But obviously, I think people often aren't motivated until, with their health at least, until they sort of have an incident, until they get diabetes or they have a heart attack. And so once he did have that, I think he was more open to listening to the research that I'd found, and he did make a shift towards a plant-based diet. So I'm very thankful for that.
That's great. And he's doing well.
Yes, he's doing excellent.
That's great. That's great. One of the other things, and that I thought was very interesting and astounding, was about ED. Do you want to talk about the research that they did on ED?
Absolutely. So yeah, erectile dysfunction and erectile function. So essentially, what you eat can have a huge impact on your blood flow. That's one of the major factors. And of course, for athletic performance, that can make a huge difference. When you eat more plant-based, your arteries open up. You can get more oxygen, more nutrients to the muscles. So that's essential for athletic performance if you want to optimize. But some of the smallest arteries in the body actually go to the penis. And so, it's actually sort of seen as the canary in the coal mine, if you will. Erectile dysfunction is sort of considered a first indicator for people getting a heart disease, because arterial disease anywhere is arterial disease everywhere. And so because those arteries are small, you can really see differences even after a single meal. And so you'll see in the film, we have some collegiate athletes or young, healthy guys who eat an animal-based meal on one day, and then a plant-based meal on the other day. And there's a device that tests erectile function, essentially the rigidity and circumference of erections and the duration of erections. And there was a significant difference. And people can watch the film to see what that was.
Right. Because, again, these are young, virile, athletes. And I think they were all rather surprised, too, by the research, which right there is a good reason for women to tell their men.
Absolutely. Well, there's actually been some indication that it can affect women's sexual function as well. But we didn't go that into the film, because one of the core myths really underlying this sort of you need meat for protein is this real men eat meat myth,
right,
which is really quite strong typically with males. And so we did focus on that a little bit more in the film. There's some amazing female athletes in the film as well.
Yes.
But this real men eat meat myth really is a central focus, and so we did focus on that.
Right. So it was also surprising when you went to the firehouse, and I was not aware of this, that the number one leading cause of death for firefighters are heart attacks. So do they suffer heart attacks sometimes when they're fighting the fires because of the stress of fighting the fire, and then they die from that? Was that kind of alluded
yes,
to?
You would think that in the line of duty, firefighters would die more from being in a fire.
Right.
But it is actually heart attacks, and so it's not just during fighting a fire. Let's remember that firefighters do a lot more than that. They also, show up at many different types of emergencies, right? Like cutting people out of cars and rescuing people in all sorts of different situations. But in the line of duty, the number one killer is heart disease. Now, yes, they are under a lot of stress, but typically, because they all eat together in these firehouses, it can tend not to be the healthiest food. And that's why Rip Esselstyn, who's featured in the film, a former firefighter, now goes around the country talking to the firehouses of the benefits that he got at his firehouse, getting his team, eating plant-based. So it can really make a big difference there with, the leading killer in the United States. And especially amongst firefighters as well.
Right. And heart disease is one of the leading killers of people all over the world. If you're just tuning in, you're listening to the Jan Price Show, all about movies. And my guest today is Ultimate Fighter winner James Wilks. And we're talking about this brand new documentary called The Game Changers. And I do want to repeat this a couple times, James. When can people see this movie and where?
So it's available on September 16th. In over 1,000 theaters around the world. And it's a one-night-only event. And there's also going to be 22 minutes of bonus content, including interviews with James Cameron, extended interviews with some other people in the film, never-before-seen footage. So we're excited to get that out to the world. And people can get tickets by going on our website, GameChangersMovie.com, and they can just search their local, zip code or postcode from wherever they are in the world and find the nearest theater to them.
I really think this is a movie that everybody should go see. I really do. I mean, it is a game changer, and it'll open your eyes. And it's a fascinating film. It really is. Let's talk about the football team, the Tennessee Titans. Yes,
absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah. So 14 members of the Tennessee Titans went on a plant-based diet, and they had the best season that they'd had in 15 years. They said they had more energy, that they were recovering better, which is something we're hearing from all of the athletes that we talked to that made the switch. And so they really felt that the diet had a huge impact, which is not only backed up anecdotally, but also by the science. So, Chef Charity Morgan, who is the wife of one of the players on the team, was making the food. And once Derek took his food in, Derek Morgan, then people started, wondering, what is that food? That looks pretty tasty. And they weren't really trying it to begin with because they'd heard about the athletic performance benefits. They were trying it because it looked and tasted good, and really good, and better than the food they were being provided. And it just sort of grew from there, and that's when they started noticing the athletic performance benefits and the recovery benefits.
Well, I'll tell you, that food does look delicious. I was getting very hungry when I was watching that movie. So you said they're going to have some recipes too when you see this film?
Yeah, so when the film launches on September 16th, we're putting up a new website that's got plenty of resources. We'll have lots of recipes that are easy to make and, high in protein. People think that plants don't have protein, but of course, all protein originates in plants.
Right.
That's where the animals that people get, that they eat, that's where they get it from. And so we're going to have plenty of recipes and all of the resources such as, eating out and the FAQs and that sort of thing. Because it's one thing for people to watch the film and be inspired to make some type of shift in the way that they eat, but it's another thing to have people, know what to eat and how to eat and some of the facts. So we want to provide resources for people. So we'll do that on the website.
And what website is that again? Is it the same?
That's GameChangersMovie.com.
Okay, so you'll have it there on that.
Yeah.
Great. So I would also want to talk to you about the I can't remember his name, who decided to walk the Appalachian Trail.
Scott Jurek. Yeah.
Yes.
So Scott is arguably one of the greatest ultra runners of all time. He actually specializes in single-day endurance events. So, for example, he has the American record for running over 160 miles in 24 hours. That's 6.5 marathons in a single day.
Wow.
But he wanted to sort of go outside of his norm, and so we wanted to do the Appalachian Trail. That usually takes people, 6 to 8 months, and Scott did it in I think it was like 46 days or something like that. So, he was certainly running a lot of it, hiking some of it where it was too steep, and sometimes he was going 24 hours straight on that. So that really shows that you can really get the endurance from a plant-based diet. Of course, a lot of people think that carbohydrates make you fat, but they certainly fuel exercise performance. And when you're talking about real food, bananas, sweet potatoes, oats, and things like that, carbohydrates actually have an inverse correlation with body fat percentage and waist circumference. So not only are they a great fuel source to give you energy, whether you're an athlete or whether you're just at your office job and you want energy to work through the day, but they actually also lower body fat as well, so long as you're not eating lots of white sugar and white flour and those types of carbohydrate-rich foods.
Right. I totally agree with you. I totally agree with you. I've always loved good hearty carbohydrates all my life. I go, people who started cutting out carbohydrates out of their diet, I said, why? I mean, I can understand the bad carbohydrates, obviously the sugar and the white flour and things like that. Yeah. But, potatoes and sweet potatoes and complex carbohydrates, that is where we get our fuel as far as, I feel exactly the same way, about that. You have and let's talk about some of the women in this movie. You have two-time female Australian 400 champion Morgan Mitchell. And, she has amazing body, amazing endurance. Let's talk a little bit about her and her journey.
Yeah, so she's also an Olympian. She's just an incredible athlete. She's now recently switched to the 800 meters. She was telling me that her endurance is just getting better, because going to an 800 meters at that speed is really quite a challenge, right? It's not the 100 or 200 meters where it's purely a sprint. And the 400 meters itself is tough. But she's just an incredible athlete. And the same thing that a lot of the other athletes were saying was, again, their recovery and their endurance, just feeling less inflammation, they can work out again sooner. And she's been saying the same thing to me recently, and she's switched over to the 800 meters as well now. So she's an incredible athlete.
And I think I would also, again, having been mostly on this my entire life, you sleep better too, because you're not, your body is functioning at a higher level, and you're not, it's not working harder, to digest the food, because you become streamlined, as far as, the fuel getting into your system. So I find I sleep much better too on this program.
Yeah, I've heard that a lot. I mean, I've never really myself had much of an issue with sleep, but I have heard that from a lot of other people as well.
I haven't had an issue either. I guess that's why I say it.
Oh, because you've been eating largely plant-based for a long time.
Oh, yeah, I have for a long, more years than I want to admit to on air. Anyhow, Dotsie Bausch, who is an Olympic silver medal winning cyclist. I also thought her story was interesting too. You want to get into that a little bit?
Yeah, she's also the 7-time USA national cycling champion as well, 2-time Pan American champion, as well as having the Olympic medal. So when she first joined the team, teammates were thinking, how are you able to do this? You just go again and again. When she made the switch, she was concerned that she wouldn't have the energy, but she just said she felt like a machine where she could just go nonstop. And I actually felt the same when I first tried this. There's that battling ropes that people do, a sort of 50-foot shipping rope, and you're throwing the arms up and down. And the most I'd ever done was 8 minutes before. And at the gym that I train at with professional and collegiate athletes for strength and conditioning, the most anyone had got on the wall there, they'd write their name on the wall 20 minutes. You had to do 10 minutes to even get your name on the wall, and I hadn't been able to do that despite training full time, for mixed martial arts. But after I switched, I went an hour straight. So again, it's this was just when I was experimenting, and it's just incredible the amount of endurance that you can get. And Dotsie, saying the same thing when she made the switch as well. So it's really unbelievable, honestly.
It really is. It truly is. It really is unbelievable. And I don't want to let this interview go without talking about the world record holding strongman, Patrick. How do you say his last name? Baboumian?
Patrick Baboumian.
Baboumian.
So, he's an Armenian, but lived in Germany, and he has 4 world records in various strength feats. And so he's got he holds one of the world log lift records, the keg lift. There's actually believe it or not, for strongmen, there's a beer keg lift record. And then also in the film, we feature a Guinness World Record attempt for the heaviest weight ever carried by a human being. So we have to travel 10 meters with over 1,400 pounds on his shoulders. So really quite incredible. And again, the opposite of what I would have thought coming into this, he packed on 50 pounds of muscle after giving up meat. And so it's just really incredible to see these kinds of changes.
Wow. I mean, that is amazing. Truly amazing. And you have to watch because it's in the movie, you have to see this. You have to see what he does, because it'll just blow your mind. Because you think, what human being could do that, carry that much weight, and have to walk that far carrying that weight. It wasn't just lifting it up. It was actually walking with it. Mm-hmm. It just is amazing. So what do you want people to walk away from when they see this film, James?
I think we just want to dispel some myths around sort of the animal protein and the meat that people really think that they need it to be strong and healthy, because really it's doing the opposite, right? So eating these animal products has been shown to lead towards some of the most chronic diseases that we suffer from. It's also hindering athletic performance and our sexual performance. And so I just want people to just be aware and share the information, and then just let them make their own decision. Again, not trying to tell people go vegetarian or go vegan, but just let them understand the facts and then let them make their own decisions.
Exactly. And that's really what the film does. It doesn't try to convince you one way or the other. It's just information that you can utilize. Okay, James, tell us again where people can see the movie and the website, please.
So September 16th, it'll be in over 1,000 theaters around the world. And so the best way to get tickets for that is gamechangersmovie.com. People can also follow and keep up to date with everything that's going on with the film on our social media. So that's Game Changers Movie on Facebook and Instagram, and GC Movie on Twitter.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for being on the show, James.
Thanks so much for having me, Jen.
You're welcome. You've been listening to The Jan Price Show, all about movies. And if you have missed any of the past shows, please go to thejanpriceshow.com, and all of the shows are archived on the website.
On Power Talk AM 1460 and FM 101.1, streaming worldwide on iHeartRadio. Jan Price talks to the movers and shakers in the film business. The Jan Price Show.